Hey, good morning, friends. This is Derek Bros of the Conscious Resistance Network, and we're going to continue our reports into the alleged death of Jeffrey Epstein. It's been a little while since we touched on Epstein because I've been waiting to see more updates and kind of checking my resources and seeing if there's anything new out there. And wouldn't you know it, this morning, Fox News sits down with forensic pathologist Dr. Michael Baden, who exclusively reveals findings from his investigations. He talks about how he was hired by Epstein's brother, Mark, and I'm just going to play the first few minutes so you can see what he has to say. This literally just came out within the last hour and a half or so. And we've talked about Dr. Michael Baden before. This guy was involved in the JFK forensic study in the 80s or the 90s, I believe. He was also involved in the OJ case. And I actually mentioned this guy as maybe a potential reason to be concerned because he's so high profile that maybe he would be involved in the cover-up of Epstein's death. But instead, it seems like he might be one of the only people blowing the whistle. So check this out.
Here and alleged sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein, his death ruled a suicide here in New York back in August.
Our next guest was tapped by Epstein's team to observe the autopsy and is here to reveal the findings from his investigation.
All right, joining us right now, former New York City medical examiner, Dr. Michael Baden. He's a forensic pathologist, Fox News contributor, and joins us right now for an exclusive interview. Dr. Baden, thanks for being here.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
When did you realize that the Epstein family needed help?
Well, I was asked by the brother, the next of kin, to be at the autopsy. And at the autopsy on day one, there were findings that were unusual for suicidal hanging and more consistent with ligature homicidal strangulation, which included...
And it was suggested at the time that he committed suicide by doing what?
By hanging. At the time, he was found allegedly hanging by a homemade ligature of sheets.
Are you saying you don't think it was suicide?
I think that the evidence points toward homicide rather than suicide.
Why?
Because there are multiple 3 fractures in the hyoid bone, the thyroid cartilage, that are very unusual for suicide and more indicative of strangulation, homicidal strangulation.
Let's take a look at what the medical examiner stated. After careful review of all the investigative information, including complete autopsy findings, the determination on the death of Epstein is below. Cause, hanging, manner, suicide. You say that his fatal injuries are consistent with homicide?
More consistent with homicide. And in fact, at the time of the autopsy, the doctor doing the autopsy didn't think there was enough information to say suicide, so she put it pending further study. And then for some reason, and they want to know, the family wants to know, why was it changed from pending further study to homicide afterwards?
So if you're there watching them perform this autopsy, you notice these 3 broken bones, and you believe it would be homicide. So that would mean another person would have gone into his cell, strangled him. Did he have any signs of trying to fight back?
Well, they took fingernail clippings to see if there's anybody else's DNA on it, and that hasn't been released. Neither has the information about whose DNA is on the ligature. A ligature was made out of torn strips of orange sheets, and whoever made it had to have a lot of DNA on it, and the brother's been asking that from day one.
So wait a second.
So we're going to leave it right there. I don't want to get, striked or in trouble for playing Fox News' whole clip here, but you can go see it yourself, guys. Just Michael Baden, Epstein, Fox News, search that, and you'll find it. But, yeah, this is pretty, I think I'd say, important. Again, this guy was hired by the family, and they do ask him, what about those who say that you're biased because, you were hired by the family? And he says he's never seen a suicide like this in 50 years of his pathology work. So I just wanted to hop in real quick and put that out there before it gets out there. You heard it. Well, you heard it first on Fox News, but you heard me doing a rundown of it here on the Conscious Resistance. And I mean, from the very beginning, you can go back to my videos of the day that Epstein was reported dead. And, I looked at the body and said, look, okay, here's the body. This is supposedly Epstein. I don't immediately go down the rabbit holes right away. Obviously, sensors went off, my spidey sense went off saying, this does not seem very likely. But we don't just, or at least I don't just go off of speculation and guesswork and assumptions. But here we have an expert who actually examined the body and who was a part of the autopsy at the request of Mark Epstein, and is now saying we're almost 90 days since Epstein's reported death, and he's saying they're still not getting answers, and that it was way more consistent with a homicide, and that he hadn't seen anything like this in 50 years. I mean, I think that's pretty much everything we need to know. And I'm going to leave it there for now, guys. I do have another video coming out today or tomorrow about the finders, another update on the finders. I've been able to look through more of the files, and there's some important information that I'm going to cover. And just stay tuned, guys. There's so much more to cover. I'm anticipating we're going to definitely need a part 2 of the Epstein documentary and part 2 of the finders documentary. I don't know when, but that's just going to be something in the works as soon as my campaign wraps up. So please spread the word that for anybody who's out there, not that too many people were buying the whole suicide story, but now we have more of a reason to question the suicide story, and hopefully this will make mainstream news and people can realize that, you know, Epstein was either funneled out of there and is living elsewhere, but I think it does make more sense for somebody to kill him. And we also talked about the cellmate, the former police officer who was with Epstein, who then was moved. And, you know, they kind of touch on that in here, but I'll let you guys watch it for yourself. Just want to remind you guys to bookmark theconsciousresistance.com. Make sure to follow us on all of our alternative media channels and to subscribe to our newsletter. And if you can support via Patreon or Subscribestar, that is very much appreciated. And until next time, guys, remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free. Peace.